Let's rank the 2025 schedule.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 6th year covering U of L, 4th year hosting this show. And I want to again express how appreciative I am for you all making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, including YouTube, 5 days a week. Your team every day. The season is under 2 weeks away for the Louisville Cardinals, kicking off on August 30th against Eastern Kentucky. I decided we're going to rank the schedule on today's show from the easiest game to the toughest game, number 12 down to number 1, 4 rankings per segment, featuring factors in the criteria such as how good I think the opponent is going to be, home versus away, other contexts like rivalries, and much more. Let me know in the YouTube comments what you think of these rankings and what you would change. So number 12 to number 9 is the pod of games that I consider avoid disaster. That's the title of this pod, Avoid Disaster. And overall, Louisville has 8 home games. It's very similar to 2023, where the Cardinals had the vast majority of their games at home or at neutral sites. The Cardinals have 4 road games this season. 2 of them are in NFL stadiums, so very similar to 2023. Number 12 down to number 9, Avoid Disaster. And we begin with this season opener. Number 12 is Saturday, August 30th versus Eastern Kentucky, 3 o'clock kickoff at Cardinal Stadium. The Colonels are the only FCS team on the schedule. 2023, they were, 5-6, and they gave Kentucky sort of a run for their money, but they did lose by over 50 points to Cincinnati. 2024, they had a better season. They went 8-5 and lost to Villanova at the end of the year. But 2025, I mean, it's one of those things to where if Louisville handles business, the starters should be out by halftime or at the very latest before the fourth quarter. No disrespect to the Colonels outside of Kentucky. I always, like to see in-state teams do well. So I'll be cheering for the Colonels to play well after the Louisville game. But I do think that when they play the Cardinals, it is going to be a severe, a severe disadvantage for the road team. So I think that Louisville's going to win this game. They're going to win it big and, sort of have that Austin P level statement that they made early on in 2024. So number 12 for me is Eastern Kentucky. Number 11 is also an early game, also out of conference, when the Cardinals come back from their week 3 bye. They will play against Bowling Green on Saturday, September 20th. That is number 11. There isn't a game time currently associated with this yet, but Bowling Green is number 11 on the toughest games schedule. Now, here's the thing. Last year, they went to Penn State, lost by 7. They went to College Station the next week, lost by 6. But after that, they just kind of, I won't say dropped off, but because they actually had a pretty decent season after that. But they went 7-5, tried to dig themselves out of the hole from early on. This year, they're projected to finish 6th in the MAC. They have a new head coach, Eddie George. Yes, that Eddie George. Still sort of in that same boat with Eastern Kentucky. If Louisville plays to the best of their abilities, or early season, you're probably not playing your best, but if you're playing close to it, you're going to win this game. And you're going to win this game by a good margin, as you are expected to. So number 12 and number 11 were pretty easy for me to decide. Didn't really go back and forth, but that can't be said for numbers 10 through probably number 8. because at this point you're looking at conference opponents where, I mean, you can go back and forth here, but 10 was pretty easy. 9 and 8 was a coin flip. Number 10 for me was late in the season. The Cardinals will host California. They will take on the Golden Bears on Saturday, November 8th, the week before they are slated to play Clemson. Now, California last year seemed like they were going to pull off a bunch of upsets. And then they ended up losing in the most brutal way possible. And then they kind of stumbled. Fernando Mendoza is gone. Jaden Ott is gone. Some other players are gone. And then California this year, with a new head coach, with Ron Rivera as their GM, they are projected to finish 15th out of 17th. It is the lowest predicted order of finish placement team that the Cardinals will play in 2025. I think California is here at number 10 because, first of all, you're playing them at home, and that's awesome. You're playing them at the end of the season, which, I mean, I think that Louisville is going to be right there in line competing for the ACC. Even though, here's the thing, the Bears have a somewhat of a favorable schedule to the point to where they might not have a terrible terrible record at this point in the season. But it's going to be one of those games where even if California does have a good record, I think that Louisville handles this game pretty easily. Like, Cal's defense, it's pretty decent. Their linebacking core is what gives them, that upside. But outside of that, I mean, can Justin Wilcox and Ron Rivera step in and be super competitive in the Atlantic Coast Conference? And I'm just not so sure if they will be able to. I mean, I think that I think that the repeated mantra over this episode is going to be, well, any team can beat you. You just have to handle business. And that kind of goes for whatever sport that you're playing, right? So number 10 for me is California in early November. Let's continue along through. In this game last year, it took one of the largest comebacks in program history to get the victory. Saturday, October 25th, Louisville will host Boston College. Boston College is my number 9 toughest game of the season. No Thomas Castellanos for the Eagles this year. They went 7-6 last year under Bill O'Brien. And I think that Bill is probably the go-to guy. I mean, he's the guy to lead that program to maybe heights that it had been to, maybe not in like the middle to late 2000s, but, earlier in the 2010s where they were respectable. Dylan, I think it's Longerin. I don't know how to say his name. He got the starting nod. The Alabama transfer will be the signal caller for the Eagles. They lost some defensive guys. They have some players coming back from a 5th-ranked ACC defense last year. But the Cardinals, a lot of it was self-inflicted last year, right? So I think that for a Boston College team, that you look at the preseason predicted order of finish, they're slated at number 13. And I'll be honest, I don't really use that as a guideline, but I kind of use it to support my argument. I think that Boston College is sitting at number 9 here. I think that Louisville is just going to be the better team. I hate to say it so bluntly, but I think that they're going to be the better team. And this is a Boston College team that could rack up some losses early on at Michigan State, at Pittsburgh, versus Clemson. And then when you get to Louisville, they have at Louisville versus Notre Dame, versus SMU, versus Georgia Tech, and at Syracuse. So I think that this is going to be a string of games where I think that Boston College takes a step back in 2025 due to the schedule. But in terms of where I'm ranking them in the Louisville slate, they're sitting at number 9. But it was a coin flip for me between number 8 and number 9. Separating these two teams was not much. There's just kind of one reason why Number 8 beat out number 9, and I'll tell you why that is when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. But first, Card Nation, I want to take the time to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up. College football is literally back this weekend. Whether you've got your eye on notable quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easier to get in the game. For me, the flex play option is a total game changer because when one of my picks misses, I can still double my money. And I've always felt like PrizePicks puts me first. So with all withdrawals, they're fast, safe, and secure. I'm extremely excited to see how Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert are going to play this upcoming football season. If you're like me, you're ready for the season, download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. Also want to take the time before we get into the next segment to tell you about our friends over at DripDrop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, for me, it's at the top of my hydration. I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy when I'm traveling so much for work. That's why I've been loving DripDrop, because DripDrop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes while just half the sugar of a leading sports drink. I always keep a few packets in my backpack so when I'm out traveling during the day, it saves me. And it's honestly saved me more than once from that midday crash. Right now, DripDrop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's DripDrop.com with the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. As always, I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville is free on all streaming services, including YouTube. We are on the road to 5K subscribers. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Every subscription does not go unappreciated. So we just talked about numbers 12 through 9 in the football schedule ranking. We are discussing numbers 8 through 5 on the second segment. And the first one was avoid disaster. 8 through 5 is simply, for lack of better terms, handle business. It's not really a disaster for the most part if you lose these teams, although you maybe could make the case that it would be. But anyway, I'm not here to have that argument. But number 9 and number 8 were a coin flip. Number 9 was Boston College. Number 8 is the first ACC home game of the season. Saturday, October 4th, hosting Virginia, Gametime TBD. Virginia is pretty similar to Boston College, as the Eagles were projected to finish 13th according to the ACC. Virginia is actually at number 14, so ranked a little bit lower. But for me, I think that Virginia is going to be a little bit more challenging of an opponent to play. You have... I think for me, it's a team that the Cardinals, for whatever reason, they always struggle with. 2023, Virginia had 2 wins, took everything that Louisville had to come back. 2024, avoided disaster. Now, you could make the case that Boston College is a better team than Virginia. I'm not really going to argue that. Cavaliers went 5-7 this last year. Tony Elliott is under the microscope. He's on the hot seat. Chandler Morris, I think, is going to be a pretty solid quarterback for the Cavaliers, but they lost their top 4 players from scrimmage. The offensive line is still going to be a question mark for this team. They did have a top 5 portal class in the conference, but I think when you are differentiating between number 9 and number 8, for whatever reason, Virginia always gives Louisville a game. So that's what I took into consideration. I mentioned again that context matters. So Boston College and Virginia, I don't think are going to be good teams, but Virginia I think historically has been the tougher game, and I think that Virginia will continue to be. Number 6 and number 7, of course, it was like splitting hairs once again. Number 7, I went with Friday, September 5th, hosting James Madison. This game is at 7 o'clock, and the reason why they are higher up than California, Boston College, and Virginia is because I think that they are a better team than those 3 squads. I mean, they are kind of like in those other receiving votes category, sort of like Louisville is at the moment. James Madison projected to win the Sun Belt. And I mean, they have a pretty decent team. I feel like with James Madison, there are like 2 portions of this fan base. One portion thinks that like they are completely a giant killer. They are going to be upset alert every time they play a good team. And then there's the other portion of fan base that's like, nah, we're going to be all right. We're going to handle them. I think I'm right there in the middle. I think that if you handle business, you're going to win this game by a large margin, but can't sleepwalk through this game. Can't come into this game unprepared. But it still kind of gives me very much, it gives me like Jacksonville State vibes from last year. The vibes are similar. Jacksonville State was one of those teams with Rich Rodriguez saying, oh, well, if you give this team the opportunity, they'll beat you. Yeah, but if you handle business, they're not going to. That's the vibe that I'm getting with this James Madison team is that, yes, the Sun Belt last year. And look, I mean, Jacksonville State, they went to their conference championship game last year. And James Madison last season in 2024, I mean, I know that they had some solid players, but they beat North Carolina in that shootout, but North Carolina wasn't good. They lost to Louisiana Monroe. They lost to App State, to Marshall. And Marshall got smacked earlier in the year. Was it to Ohio State in 2024, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, they lost 49-14 to Ohio State, 31-14 to Virginia Tech. So, and I hate to play like the common opponent denominator, but it just goes to show you that if Louisville handles business, I think they win this game pretty handedly. And I think that they do the same with number 6. And number 6 is the Governor's Cup matchup at the end of the season versus Kentucky. Now, look, I know Kentucky might not be as good as James Madison, although I think that still an SEC team is, even if they don't win a single game in conference, they still could be a team that could beat the bottom of the ACC or beat a MAC team or a Sun Belt team. Like, I think Kentucky is going to be one of the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the conference. There is a very real possibility that they do not win a single conference game. Like, I don't think that they are going to be good at all. Although, motivated Mark Stoops. Mark Stoops is motivated. You never know. But still, they're number 6 for me. They're higher than James Madison because it's a rivalry game. We saw what they did in 2023. They upset Louisville, even though it took everything Louisville could to lose that game for them to win it. But even then, they still did win it. I think that it's lower than some other games than it was last year because Kentucky's taken a step back. They've lost a ton of their good contributors. Yes, they did go to the portal, but I don't think Kentucky's going to be that good. It's a rivalry game, so you have to respect it, but I do think that Louisville wins this game as well. And this is kind of where it's, the whole handle business thing. And now we're into the top 5. Number 5 is one of the, actually, we're kind of going on a run with the road games here. Number 5 starts that. It's the first road game of the season. It's Saturday, September 27th at the Pittsburgh Panthers. Game time still to be determined. Pittsburgh projected to finish 9th in the conference. I think that Pat Narduzzi's team completely crumbled last year after starting out 7-0, and I called it because they didn't really play anybody to start the year. But Eli Holstein got hurt. Desmond Reed got hurt. They were banged up down the stretch, and I think that with both of those guys back, they have an offense that is built upon big-time plays. They have a defense that is led by a really solid pass rush, a really solid front 7. Secondary is kind of questionable, but that's kind of by design with the defensive system they play. Pittsburgh's that first road game. It's a game that I still think Louisville needs to handle business. Like, if they handle business, they're going to win this game. But it's sort of that it's in that same boat to where they have the pieces to make things interesting if you let them. I actually think Pittsburgh will be able to take a little bit of a step forward in 2025. So really solid linebacking core, a quarterback that had a great breakout first season as a starter, and then Desmond Reed's one of the best all-purpose backs in the conference. So if you give up big plays on offense to Pittsburgh, it's going to be a long afternoon or evening, depending on when that game is. But Pittsburgh is number 5 for me. Number 4 gets very, very interesting, especially numbers 2 and 3. You know, the Miami and SMU games are up in the top 4 somewhere, but which one is going to be viewed as the tougher game? I'll tell you what I think when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, first I want to take the time to tell you about our friends over at OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale customer communications. For me, having a work phone, I juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate. Well, OpenPhone has pretty much solved that instantly. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Card Nation, it's getting closer and closer. The anticipation it's through the roof, or at least it is for me, and I know it is for a lot of the Cardinal faithful out there. We are less than 2 weeks away from kickoff. This week, I hate that August is like a peak month for me. I mean, it just is what it is in terms of my day job, but I hate it from like a programming scheduling standpoint. There's only going to be 4 total episodes this week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So just a heads up on that. So there will be 2 more episodes this week, weekly mailbag. So get your questions in, and we will probably discuss the 3 hot takes that I have for the season. So, but anyway, then there were 4. Ranking the most challenging and toughest games on the football schedule, numbers 12 to number 1. Number 4, we continue the road game stretch, and it's the toughest road game for the Cardinals. At Virginia Tech on Saturday, November 1st. Now, Virginia Tech is projected to finish 11th. I think that they're going to be a little bit better than that. They're not as good of a team as Pittsburgh, in my opinion. They might not even be as good a team as James Madison, but you're on the road at Lane Stadium, which the atmosphere there is tougher to play in, like easily tougher to play in than Pittsburgh, Miami, SMU. Like, it's going to be the most hostile environment that you're going to play. The hope is that Virginia Tech is not going to be a good team by November 1st, but look at their schedule. The opportunity is there for them to make some early season noise if Kyron Drones can stay healthy and effective, and the other members of the team step up. Brent Pry is on the hot seat, and the Hokies are going to look to bounce back from a pretty down year last year. So Virginia Tech is number 4. I don't think they are one of the more talented teams that you're going to play, but it is by far and away the most challenging venue that you're going to play in. Like, it's the toughest true road game, and that's why it is sitting at number 4 for me in these rankings. Number 3 and number 2. I think it comes down to my overall thoughts on these 2 respective teams. Number 3, October 17th on a Friday night at Miami, 7 o'clock. Number 2, Saturday, November 22nd at SMU, game time to be determined. Both of these teams top 20 in the preseason rankings. I gave SMU the nod because, look, I've been to a road game at Miami. It was almost half Louisville fans. Now, it was the year before they just went 10-2, but even then, like, Miami is not a college city. You can tell by their attendance. No disrespect to the Hurricanes. No disrespect. I think that it's not really so much of the challenging aspect of playing on the road because it's not going to be easy playing on the road. Friday night at Miami is not going to be easy. Saturday late in the season at SMU is not going to be easy. But I think that if you ask me which of the two teams is more likely to not live up to expectations and stumble along the way, I think it's going to be Miami. Like, look at Miami's schedule. Notre Dame, South Florida, Florida, and Florida State, 4 out of the first 5 games. If Miami loses a couple of those games, are the fans going to, are they going to be at the game and have a high attendance there? Like, I'm just not so sure. Again, it's not so much about the schedule as it is that I think that SMU is the better team. I think that SMU is the better team. Like, I think that if someone's going to regress, I think it's more likely that it's going to be Miami with as many players as they are replacing. Granted, they probably have the best offensive line in the ACC. Still, is Carson Beck going to be able to step in and fill the shoes of Cam Ward? Is the defense going to be able to take a step forward under a new defensive coordinator? The defense was not good last year despite having some big-time names on that side of the football. I think that SMU at the end of the season, looking at their schedule, they're going to have a chance to be right there. That game could have like major, not only ACC implications, but college football playoff implications. So it wasn't much, but that's the difference between number 3 and number 2 for me, is that I think that SMU is going to be the better team. And it's at that point in the season where if Louisville and SMU handle business up to that point, a lot is riding on that game. So number 2 for me is at SMU. And of course, that leaves number 1. Shouldn't be a surprise. It's Friday, November 14th, hosting the top 5 preseason ranked Clemson Tigers. 8 o'clock, Cardinal Stadium. Clemson's going to be looking to deliver some payback to the Cardinals, who embarrassed them at Death Valley Junior last year. But this is a tough game. I think Clemson is by far the best team in the conference this year. They return a lot of their young pieces that played a ton last year. The defensive front 7 is looking nasty. Cade Klubnik is a really good quarterback. Don't let that one game against Louisville fool you. Go back and look what he did against Texas and SMU. But Clemson is number 1 for me. So that's my schedule rankings. Number 12 down to number 1. I think if you are talking about number 4 to number 1, the mantra of that, or the theme, is wreak some havoc. That's at least the way that I see it. College football playoff hopeful, whatever you want to call it. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. Where would you disagree? Who would you have higher? Who would you have lower? Let me know, and more, as well as getting your questions in for the weekly mailbag. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Cards.